Good evening to all. Welcome to NOGEM First People's Performance Space for the 11th annual 3-minute paper competition. Yes. That's right, folks. That's right. My name is Erin Stewart-Eves. I'm the manager of academic supports in the colleges. I'm also a proud Trent alumna, a house league hockey mom, a nature lover, and your host for the night, so buckle up. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I believe it is important for us to start in a good way, so I wish to respectfully acknowledge that we're gathered here on the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe. I'm grateful to live, work, and play as a settler on these lands called Nagajwang or Peterborough. I offer my gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. I invite you all to honor those teachings with me as I commit to listen and learn with an open heart. We're gathered tonight in the Enwaying Building, a place that takes its meaning from the Anishinaabe, the way we speak together. I'm grateful that we can come together to share ideas and research stories in NOGEM Theatre in the First People's House of Learning. We are privileged to start our evening tonight with a person who knows a thing or two about good storytelling and communication. I ask you to join me in welcoming Marilyn Burns, Vice President of Communications and Enrollment at Trent University, to the podium for introductory remarks.
You had the best of MCs tonight with Erin Stewart-Eves, and hi, Jonathan. I wanted to also say thank you for that land acknowledgement. I think we all realize what a privilege it is to live, work, play, and reflect here on these lands and think about what our past shared history is, our present, and what may be our future. Maybe one presentation tonight might address some of those issues. So I would start by saying, for those of you in the audience, prepare to be inspired, moved, and amazed tonight. You will watch these undergraduate students from across a wide range of subjects and disciplines take months of research and boil it down into just 180 seconds of impressive insights, salient facts, and often a provocative idea about the implications of their findings. I want to thank Stephanie Muehletaler, the principal of Autonomy College, for asking me to introduce tonight's event. It is among my favorite Trent events, and I think it'll become one of yours as well. The 3-minute paper is a uniquely Trent event, and it was initiated by the success of the 3-minute thesis competition. Probably sparked and inspired by it is a better way of putting it. This is the 11th annual, and it was pioneered by academic skills, not surprisingly, born and nurtured in the colleges of Trent University, where dialogue is very active. It's now a much anticipated occasion in the annual calendar of events at Trent and all the wonderful things that it offers to the community. So I'm excited to welcome audiences from near and far, and I wondered if there are any parents potentially who may have traveled in out there in the audience. Oh, I see lots of hands. That's great. Welcome and thank you for being here. We may have also some faculty and maybe some principals who have helped to mentor our students, and maybe they would give us a little wave. That's great. And I wanted to welcome the many faculty and staff, advisors, et cetera, who have come tonight. We actually have 2 vice presidents as well, Vice President of Research and Innovation, Dr. Holger Hintelman, and we have Dr. Scott Henderson from the Durham campus, our Vice President of the Durham campus. Thank you both for coming. I wanted to as well thank you, the students. You have worked so hard, and I'm sure you're hoping that you can finally get up here and have your moment. This year's event, I think, is going to show us who our future leaders are. And you are turning the tables on us tonight as you teach us what you have learned, and we're really looking forward to it. We have over 20 students competing tonight. They are from both campuses. They are right across the sciences, social sciences, and the humanities. And we are also delighted to know that I think we're about to get started. What I was going to say, Erin, is that you're about to introduce our judges. And I would just say that is a position that I don't envy tonight, is the role of the judges, who will be really looking at some very tough decisions as they decide who will walk away with one of these treasured awards. So thank you again, all of you, for coming, and good luck to our students.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Marilyn. So we're celebrating tonight. We're celebrating undergraduate research at Trent, which is so vibrant. We're going to hear from 21 amazing student researchers. I promise their work is going to amaze and inspire you. I extend our appreciation for your support being here in the audience or joining us from the live stream at trentu.ca/3mp. So Marilyn gave a little bit of background, and I'm going to offer a little bit more. Yes, the 3-minute paper was stolen from the 3-minute thesis competition, which is a graduate level competition that started at the University of Queensland in Australia in 2008. And it continues to be this huge competition across the world where graduate students have to distill their years of research into a brief 3-minute talk. This year, Trent's 3-minute thesis competition will be April 17th at Market Hall. Mark your calendars. It's always a wonderful event. We know at Trent that grad students aren't the only ones doing really interesting research. We've got an opportunity here to showcase all of that research. It provides undergrads to have that same experience where they have to distill and refine their research and really practice their presentation skills and feel this fun pressure, right? Of having to explain their really specialized research to a generalist audience. You folks are all smart, but you maybe don't sit next to them in the lab every day and know what they're working on. So there are so many amazing opportunities these students have been engaged in, whether that's an honors thesis, a community research project, or a major paper that they've spent months on. Our group of students are rising to the challenge here. They've worked in the lab, they've done field study, data analysis, and some really deep critical reading. And they have to talk about it in 3 minutes. These presentations are evidence of critical thinking and communication skills that are necessary to make highly specialized research meaningful to a non-specialist audience. The presenters are expected to explain foundational concepts of their research, avoid highly specialized terminology, and create a meaningful storyline about their research and its value. These are the same essential skills that employers demand of new graduates. And at Trent, we believe that through effective storytelling, researchers can share new and important ideas and foster collaboration to effect momentous change. So these wonderful students over here, they are so enthusiastic about their research. They don't really need a lot of incentive. They're representing, as Marilyn mentioned, all 5 of the colleges here in Peterborough and the Durham campus, the GTA. We've got presentations ranging from psychology, forensic science, child and youth studies, English, Indigenous environmental studies, biomedical science, and more psychology, and so many other fascinating disciplines as well. But they're also doing this because we've got some great prizes. So our overall prize is sponsored by the Office of Research, and it's $250. We've got our first runner-up prize, sponsored by Alumni Engagement Services, and that's $100. We've got our second runner-up prize, sponsored by the Trent Teaching Commons, formerly known as the Center for Teaching and Learning. And all those three top prizes, they're determined by the scoring that the judges do. And those top prize winners will also have their 3MP scripts published in the Journal for Undergraduate Studies. The Journal for Undergraduate Studies also has sponsored a prize that we've called the Social Justice Prize. And that's awarded to a presentation with a top mark, but that is focused on social justice, and they haven't received a top prize. And then the President's Office generously donated two prizes, the prize for best visuals and the prize for the audience choice, which is something you get to participate in. We've got rules. It's a competition after all. The most obvious, maximum 3 minutes. We've got a timer up here. We hear the bell. That might be bad news, okay? The presenters can say thank you after the bell, so don't worry. If we've given them all the instructions. They cannot sing, nor can they rap, nor can they have props. They cannot run around into the stands at all. They are permitted to use 3 slides in this competition, and they are permitted to use notes if they wish. And really the most important, I think the judges will agree, number 6, the decision of the 3MP competition judges are final, okay? Our judging panel, we've got a fantastic panel here tonight, and I was asking them about some fun facts so you can all get a sense of who these wonderful folks are. I'd like to introduce first Christy McEwen, the manager of library services. Christy is like me, a fellow hockey mom, except she's taken it to the next level. She runs the local Leo League in Campbellford. So whenever you're at the rink in Campbellford, you're probably going to see Christy, I think. Librarians really should run the world. I think we all know that, right? And clearly, Christy's making it happen in Campbellford. So thank you, Christy. Next, we have Jose Gonzalez-Giel. Jose is the Human Rights Advisor for the Equity and Human Rights Office. I learned today that Jose has 300 species or more of freshwater fish at his house, and a 100-gallon tank is only one of the tanks he has, and that perhaps in some Zoom calls, people think that it is an artificial background, but it is actually all real fish. It's pretty amazing. And finally, we have Lawrence Lamb, who's our Associate Vice President of Students. And for anyone who's been around Trent knows, where there is food, there's Lawrence. He is at every mac and cheese throwdown, chili competition, curry contest. He's found them all, but his palate's pretty good, so it's, I think, well-deserved place there, Lawrence. And if you're ever looking for a restaurant recommendation, he's your guy. We thank you because you've got a front row seat for this task where you need to determine the scores for each presenter based on 4 equally weighted criteria. The first is language and communication. Was the research and its significance communicated in a language appropriate to an intelligent, you folks look pretty intelligent, but non-specialist audience? Next, knowledge and understanding. Did the presentation help the audience understand the complexity of the research? Next, engagement. Did the presentation make the audience want to know more? Finally, visual aids. Are the slides visually interesting illustrations of key ideas in the presentation? And do they complement the presentation? And folks, this is the same criteria that I ask you to consider while you prepare to cast your ballot at the end of the evening after you've heard all of the talks as well. All right, we're almost there. I will ask you to silence your phones for the duration of the event. I'll also ask that if you need to exit for any reason, please wait till the end of a presentation to leave your seat between the speakers. It's only 3 minutes, okay? Hopefully that works for you. And we will begin. Our very first speaker, not an easy task, is Chloe Lauer. Chloe is a student from Trail College studying environmental chemistry, and her title is Antidepressant Biomonitoring Using Caged Mussels.
In 2023, over 70 million antidepressant prescriptions were written in Canada. That's over 2.5 billion pills taken by Canadians in just 1 year. To put that into perspective, if all of these pills were to be stacked on top of one another, they would escape the Earth's atmosphere 2 times over. Now this begs the question, what happens to all these antidepressants? Most people would say that the journey of an antidepressant starts and ends with the consumer, that the pills are simply taken and that's the end of the story. But would it surprise you to learn that antidepressants live a life of their own long after they've been taken? Inside the body, a portion of the antidepressant is transformed into a more water-soluble form, while some goes completely unaltered. These altered and unaltered antidepressants are then excreted by the body in feces and urine and sent to sewage treatment plants. At treatment plants, antidepressants can't be fully removed from waste, so they are dumped back into our rivers and streams. This entire process results in the continuous release of a complex mixture of bioactive and psychoactive compounds into our waters, the same waters that we swim in, fish from, and even drink. For the past 6 months, I've been working to develop methods of biomonitoring antidepressant contamination in the aquatic environment using caged mussels as bioindicators. Now you might be asking yourself, why mussels of all creatures? For one thing, mussels are filter feeders. They filter large quantities of water and are able to uptake contaminants that are dissolved in the water and absorbed to their food sources. They have a limited ability to remove antidepressants, causing them to accumulate in their bodies. Additionally, mussels spend the majority of their lives in a single location. This allows us to be certain that any contamination found in their bodies was uptaken at the point in which they were sampled or deployed. With the help of Kenneth Drouillard and his team at the University of Windsor, cages containing eastern elliptio mussels were deployed in the outflow of the Little River sewage treatment plant and at 2 locations downstream from the plant. After extracting and analyzing antidepressants from these mussels, we detected every antidepressant that we tested for at each location in the Little River. While alarming, these findings are an important step in the ongoing process of protecting our waters and preserving the health of our environment. So the next time you see those pesky zebra mussels attached to your boat, stop and think about their potential to help us monitor contamination in the aquatic environment. With their unique abilities and our modern scientific methods, we can turn the tide on the hidden threat of antidepressant contamination, one mussel at a time.
Thanks so much, Chloe. I love a little wordplay. That was very fun. And it's not easy to be that first person, so we really appreciate you stepping up to the plate there, certainly. Our next presenter is Jordan Wills. Jordan is a psychology student from Autonomy College, and Jordan's title is Emotional Intelligence Across Cultures, a study of Kazakh and Canadian children.
Thank you, Erin. Think back to a time when you were feeling frustrated or stressed. Were you able to recognize how you were feeling and understand why you were feeling that way? What about when a friend was feeling down? Could you recognize it easily? These are examples of emotional intelligence, or EI. EI's ability to not only recognize and understand our own emotions, but also to recognize and understand the emotions of others. It has been found to have positive influences throughout the lifespan, but much of this work has overlooked the role of culture, especially in children. Culture plays an essential role in what is considered important in society, and it dictates how we express our emotions. In traditional Asian cultures like Kazakhstan, they're considered collectivists, as they value emotional restraint and the pursuit of group goals. Westernized cultures like Canada are considered individualistic, as they value more free and open emotional expression and emphasize independence. So my research focused on trait EI, a type of emotional intelligence measured through self-reports. I compared 200 Kazakh and 200 Canadian children ages 9 to 11 years old to see if trait EI could be generalized across diverse cultural groups using the Baron model of trait EI. This model has 4 dimensions of EI. Intrapersonal, which is being able to recognize and understand your own emotions. Interpersonal, which is being able to recognize and understand the emotions of others. Adaptability, being able to adjust your emotions to changing situations. And stress management, which refers to emotional regulation abilities. Those that score high on these 4 dimensions have higher EI and are considered to be better at navigating situations by using their emotions. So our results were surprising. You would think the Kazakh children, with the emphasis on recognizing others' emotions for meeting group goals, would be better at recognizing others' feelings. And you'd think the Canadian children, with the emphasis on independence, would be better at recognizing their own emotions. But we found the opposite. Kazakh children were better at identifying their own emotions, and Canadian children were better at identifying the emotions of others. These results are interesting because they emphasize that EI is not entirely universal. It's shaped by culture, and we can't apply the same assumptions across diverse cultural groups. More research on the trait EI of children is necessary to help us better understand the emotional and cultural differences when it comes to emotion. These insights could help parents and educators to develop more culturally appropriate strategies for teaching social and emotional skills, the skills that are fundamental to a child's well-being. Thank you.
I so enjoy hearing the research stories when I'm like, oh, we found something that we didn't expect. Those are the most fascinating ones. And I have to share that Jordan and I are from the same hometown, and I went to high school with her mom. So I bet you, are they watching? Okay. Hi, Crystal. Hi, Jared. So I had to got to give a shout out to little old Dresden, which is near the University of Windsor, Chloe. So, so far we've got a Southwestern Ontario theme. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that off next. But next we do have Hannah Smith. Hannah is a student from Zosky College studying biomedical science. Her title is Mitochondrial Disease and Muscle. What happens when the powerhouse of the cell goes awry?
We often take for granted the ease at which we can walk around and complete everyday tasks, but for some people, a lack of energy makes this very difficult. In fact, there is a condition where the very energy our bodies need to function is dysregulated, and this results in a condition known as combined oxidative phosphorylation deficiency 35, but that's a mouthful, so we'll call it COX-PD 35 from here on out. The illness mainly affects children, and it causes symptoms like global developmental delay, seizures, and musculoskeletal abnormalities. In addition, any high energy tissues may be impacted, for example, the brain, the muscle, the lungs, the heart, the liver. Now, let me introduce to you another key component of this research, something you may know as the powerhouse of the cell, but more specifically named the mitochondria. These organelles are essential for producing energy in the body, but in COX-PD 35, they are unable to produce energy due to a deficiency in an enzyme called tRNA isopentenyl transferase 1, or TRIT1 for short. Now, this deficiency of TRIT1 leads to mitochondria being unable to produce energy, which then has downstream effects on muscle. Now, let me introduce to you the last key player in my research, skeletal muscle. So this tissue facilitates movement through muscle contraction, and it can also be regenerated when it is damaged. Like we talked about earlier, TRIT1 causes energy deficiency due to mitochondria being unable to produce that energy. And this has negative effects on that muscle functioning because it is unable to complete those functions like contraction and regeneration. Now, to explore this, I have been completing several different studies. The first of which is growing cells on a petri dish, and then I've been staining them to identify TRIT1 and mitochondria. This has shown me that TRIT1 is present in the mitochondria, and more importantly, they are both present in skeletal muscle, indicating that TRIT1 may play a role in skeletal muscle functioning. Now, another piece of my research involves another protein called MyoD. MyoD helps cells to regenerate. And this is important because we did a computer analysis in our lab and found that while it's important for muscle regeneration, it may also play a role in TRIT1 synthesis, which can indicate a strong connection between muscle regeneration and the enzyme. I've not completed this section of my research, but it's still ongoing, and I look forward to seeing what my results are there. Now, to conclude, while a deficiency of TRIT1 causes illness, its normal function helps maintain healthy muscles and mitochondria. Thus, if TRIT1 plays a significant role in muscle regeneration, we may be able to improve its function to aid in the treatment of conditions like COX-PD35 and other muscular disorders, ultimately improving the quality of life for those affected. Thank you.
Hannah, I think you had to shorten some of those words, or you would have been about 5.5 minutes, right? Yeah. All right, our next presenter is Christina Auger, a student from Durham campus studying psychology and sociology. Christina's topic, Work It, the Autistic Experience of Employment.
Roughly 1% of the world's population lives with autism, which equates to around 800 million people. Autism affects the way individuals communicate and behave in social situations. It can present itself in many different ways, and it varies on a wide spectrum. However, the most common behaviors are an inability to understand social cues, maintain eye contact, and know how to respond appropriately in social situations. Autistic individuals also stim, which is an emotional regulation through verbal tics, sounds, and repetitive behaviors. These can have grave implications on their ability to secure and maintain a job. Research on the autistic adult is fairly new and has only come up within the last 10 years. Most studies look at the overall life experience of the autistic individual, with very few studies focusing specifically on employment and zero through a Canadian lens. What we do know is that 33% of autistic Canadians are employed, compared to 65% of those with other disabilities. So I wanted to know why. What are the implications and what are the issues that autistic adults face when trying to find employment? What are the obstacles within the workplace? And what does being employed mean to them? I interviewed 8 autistic adults and 3 parents. They've indicated that during an interview with a prospective employer, they have a hard time understanding and answering ambiguous and indirect questions, as well as maintaining eye contact and controlling their stimming. While in the workplace, they have a hard time adapting to the sensory overload of sights, sounds, and socialization. They also have a hard time controlling their stimming. Good morning. They camouflage or mask their behaviors in an effort to appear more neurotypical and fit in. This results in high levels of sensory overload and burnout, which inevitably forces them into the difficult decision of leaving their job. But they want to work. They report that being employed makes them feel worthwhile and like active, productive members of society. So what can we do with this information? Well, this only scratches the surface, but I hope my research raises awareness on the autistic adult's abilities and desires. In doing so, we can forge the pathway to proper accommodations, provide occupational therapy or occupational training within the workplace, and secure and stronger workplace protection policies. It is time we stopped treating them as if They are not part of our social world. No, that was terrible.
You recovered. You took it right to the wire. Thank you, Christina. It's not easy up here.
It is not.
No. It's like, it's only 3 minutes. No, it's not. No.
I gained a couple more gray hairs.
Our next speaker is Blythe Ferguson, an Autonomy College student studying forensic science. Her title, okay, prepare. The function of saposin proteins in dictyostelium discoideum.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, you got it. Imagine a world where neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and Huntington's no longer robbed individuals of their memories, movements, and identities, where your body wasn't fighting against itself to maintain its independence and autonomy. Sounds amazing, right? These conditions all share a common feature: the progressive death of nerve cells resulting in irreversible damage to the brain and nervous system. But what if there was a way to better understand their underlying mechanism and open the door to potential treatments? At the core of neurodegeneration lies a fundamental issue: defective protein and lipid metabolism. One key player in this is the saposin family of proteins, which play a role in maintaining the nervous system. But how exactly does this relate to neurodegeneration? Saposin proteins, which are derived from another protein called prosaposin, play a role in breaking down cellular waste. When this process is disrupted, the stability of myelin, which is the protective blanket around nerve cells, is compromised, resulting in neurodegenerative diseases. The social amoeba Dictyostelium discoideum is an important model organism in neurodegenerative research. It behaves like human cells and has been studied for close to a century. Its 24-hour life cycle makes it incredibly useful because it contains both single-celled and multi-celled phases, allowing the breakdown of cellular material to be observed throughout the entire life cycle without having to wait for an extensive period. Dictyostelium contains a protein called APLA, which is similar to the human protein prosaposin. Using the relationship between these two proteins, I'm working to develop a dictyostelium model studying prosaposin. This will shed some light into the role of proteins and their involvement in neurodegeneration. I will be using microscopic techniques to visualize the location of proteins within a cell by making them light up with the help of antibodies and fluorescent dyes. The Western blot analysis technique is another technique I will be using to quantify the amount of APLA protein found both inside and outside of the cell. In human cells, prosaposin localizes to lysosomes, which is the recycling center of the cell. So far, our results suggest that APLA actually is part of the filamentous structures in dictyostelium cells, as can be seen by the top row of green images. APLA has also been detected in the conditioned buffer of the cell, which is a sample collected from the contents outside of the cell. By bridging the gap between fundamental protein research and neurodegenerative disease studies, we move one step closer to unraveling the mysteries behind these devastating conditions. Understanding the role of saposin proteins and their homologs may provide the key to the future of treatment and prevention in neurodegenerative diseases, giving hope to millions of families worldwide. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Blythe. That was easy for you to say. Our next speaker is Pakin Pongpibun. Pakin is an Autonomy College student studying biomedical science. His title, Cardiac Cachexia, a gym bro's nightmare.
All right, guys, where are the gym bros at? So, who here identifies as a gym bro, or even a regular person who goes to the gym? Well, in our time, it's pretty common that many youths yearn for a beefy physique. However, the truth of life is such that once we age, we run into different kinds of problems, such as chronic illness. For example, heart failure. And a possible consequence of heart failure is cardiac cachexia, which is a multi-organ syndrome that leads to changes like loss of lean body mass and loss of skeletal muscles. Muscle loss occurs because of the changes in the way your body uses nutrients, such as proteins and carbohydrates. And some of you may say, I don't want to look like this guy here. I'm healthy enough, so I should give a damn about muscles. Well, muscles allow us to move around and perform daily activities aside from their sexy curves. Our lab has been studying cardiac cachexia using mononicrotoline, which is a drug, and I will be referring to it as MCT. MCT is injected into mice because it mimics the pathway of heart failure, leading to changes in places like skeletal muscles, such as reduced muscle size, like the legs of a gym bro who's been skipping leg days for an entire year. You get my point, right? Anyways, our lab found that MCT may affect males and females mice differently. The results suggest that females may be more protected from muscle loss in cardiac cachexia. Therefore, the objective of my thesis is to verify if these changes can be detected within skeletal muscles. And the way I do this is by detecting changes in glycogen, which is a stored form of carbohydrate fuel embedded in skeletal muscles that is used to provide energy during physical activity. I do this by cutting the sample using this device here. I then color the samples by dipping them into containers of chemicals, some of which bind to glycogen. This part is like making a chocolate dip ice cream cone because I'm just dipping my samples into different containers of chemicals over and over. The darker the chemical binds, the more the chemical binds, the darker the reagents gets, which means that there's more glycogen. If I find evidence that female samples generally stain more purple, it might mean that females are may be more protected from skeletal muscle loss in cardiac cachexia. This will help inform future therapy. Conclusively, all this super essential information will help us conserve a critically endangered life form on planet Earth called gym bros. Thank you.
Pack, and you had me thinking about the gym, but then you started talking about ice cream, and I think one's going to weigh out the other. I'll let you know later. Thanks. Our next speaker is Lisa McFadder. Lisa is an Autonomy College student studying psychology. Her title, I Feel Stuck, Examining the Association of Trait Incompleteness and Cognitive Flexibility.
Do you ever get a feeling that something just isn't right? Maybe the photo you just hung seems slightly crooked, or the car door you closed just doesn't sound quite right. It might not be obvious to other people, but it's obvious to you. For those high in incompleteness, this feeling is all too familiar. And for some of those people, no matter what they do, it just doesn't feel right. Incompleteness, although commonly found in those with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, can be a personality trait that is in many people. Some have high levels, though. Those high in incompleteness can describe a not just right sensation. Those high in incompleteness can describe a not just right sensation, a sense of internal discomfort that compels them to make adjustments or repeat a task in order to achieve a sense of resolution. Whether it's an environment, a task, or something indescribable, it can interfere with daily functioning, making them feel stuck. Feeling stuck is a frustrating feeling that I'm sure we've all experienced at some point. And it is particularly challenging for those with low cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility can make it difficult to adapt to new information, shift perspectives, or break free from repetitive thought patterns that can interfere with daily functioning. Cognitive flexibility is our ability to adjust thinking in response to a new situation, switching between different perspectives or tasks, or generating alternative solutions. Whether cognitive flexibility is impaired, this will cause individuals to have rigid thinking patterns, making it harder to break away from needing to redo a task to make it feel just right. Can you imagine adjusting that photo you hung for over an hour, unable to step away, and because it just doesn't feel right? Research has suggested that low cognitive flexibility is associated with OCD symptoms, such as pattern seeking, counting behaviors, and difficulty in set shifting and problem solving. Interestingly, these are also found in those with high incompleteness, although because it is a new research, the information is very, very limited. My research aims to explore the links between cognitive flexibility and levels of incompleteness. By doing brain teasers and problem-solving issues, we hope to see and make sure everyone can feel just right.
That clock is a beast, Lisa, but you beat it. Our next speaker is Zoe Reed Stafford, a Champlain student studying forensic science. Zoe's title, Glow and Behold, the bright future of fluorescent nanomaterials in fingerprint development.
Latent fingerprints are invisible impressions that are left on surfaces after being touched. Fingerprints are crucial in forensic investigations, but they're useful, but to be useful, they require development for visualization. The most common and traditional method for visualization is powdering, in which black powder is dusted over the impression. However, black powder often has limitations, including low contrast and difficulty being seen on dark surfaces or in low light areas. Thus, new methods need to be developed that are effective, sensitive, and versatile so they can be visualized in low lighting areas. Within my thesis project, I created fingerprinting powders that use fluorescent material to be used within these scenarios that offer high contrast and resolution. Carbon-based materials are small fluorescent particles that are highly sensitive and have low toxicity. Within my powders, they were combined with either flour or cornstarch to see which was a more effective base and produce the powder texture required. When they're put together, they produce a fine brown powder that fluoresces under UV light. These powders were produced in various ratios to determine how their fluorescence would differ. Once the powders were made, they were tested using aged fingerprints. The fingerprints were deposited on ceramic tiles and allowed to age for a various amount of time, ranging from a few minutes to 3 months. These prints were also stored in different conditions, such as in different lighting and temperature, to determine how their environment would affect the development. Finally, they were compared against black powder to determine which powder was more effective at developing the prints. Early results conclude that the carbon-based materials provide superior contrast and resolution in comparison to the traditional black powder, especially on multicolored or dark surfaces in which the detail of the fingerprint wouldn't necessarily be visible. This technique improves visualization, accuracy, detection, and contrast of fingerprints while reducing harmful chemicals. This research will contribute to a deeper understanding of fluorescent powders within fingerprint development. Implicating fluorescent powders will lead to more effective forensic investigations by making faster analysis more reliable and cost-effective. As a result, everyone in this room and communities worldwide will benefit from improved forensic techniques that enhance safety, speed up investigations, and bring justice more efficiently. Thank you.
Zoe, I think you've challenged a lot of our viewing of all the CSI type shows. I don't know if it'll work if it'll give the same visual effect, you know? Hopefully we'll be seeing it at some point. Our next presenter is Lucy Van Haften, a lady and college student studying conservation biology. Lucy's title, Blinded by the Flight, Investigating Fluorescence in Flying Squirrels.
Let me set the scene for you. You're in the middle of this beautiful forest in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, something whooshes right past your head. You look up, and staring back at you from a nearby branch is a flying squirrel, the cutest member of the squirrel family. Oops. My supervisor has been studying flying squirrels in this very forest for the past 20 years, trying to uncover all of their interesting features. And just when he thought he had a good handle on things, interesting news came from Michigan in 2019. A researcher was out in the woods looking for lichen with an ultraviolet flashlight, and he just so happened to point that flashlight at the sky at the exact moment a flying squirrel was gliding overhead. And to his disbelief, this flying squirrel was glowing hot neon pink. And so a discovery was made. Flying squirrels fluoresce under ultraviolet light. You can see here a squirrel on the left under regular lighting, and that same squirrel under ultraviolet. And you can see just how bright these fluorescent colors are. Now, this phenomenon has been studied a few times since its discovery, but these studies have used museum specimens, so dead preserved animals. These studies have showed that there seems to be some variation in how these squirrels fluoresce, meaning that not every squirrel fluoresces the same way. And this is where my research comes in. The goal of my work is to assess this variation and figure out what it might be related to, all while using live animals in a field setting, which has not been done before. So I've been going out every week and photographing flying squirrels under ultraviolet light, and then analyzing those photos by comparing different squirrels to each other and comparing photos of one squirrel over time to look at changes. And what I found so far is that flying squirrels fluoresce in a bunch of different patterns. And I'd like to share with you my 3 favorites. First, we have the orange helmet. Now, the orange helmet pattern, based on my analyses, is more likely to appear on male squirrels than female squirrels. And it's also more likely to appear later in the year compared to in the summer. And this is modeled on Charlie. And next, we have the racing stripes, which are being rocked by Draco in this picture. They are also more likely to appear later in the year compared to in the summer. And then we have Winky, who's just a complete anomaly because she's got this donut on her belly, and she's the only squirrel we've seen with that pattern. And so while I have some answers and some explanations for certain patterns, for example, the orange helmet may be a way that males signal to females that it's time to mate, other patterns remain completely unexplained. And I think this serves as an excellent reminder of one of the greatest parts of science, which is the more we learn, the more we realize we have yet to learn. My research is important because it sheds ultraviolet light on this interesting phenomenon, and it also can lead to future studies on the ecological importance of fluorescence in flying squirrels. I would like to thank you all very much for your time and urge you to keep an eye out for your new furry fluorescent friends next time you find yourself in woods like these in the middle of the night.
We're almost halfway through, and we've heard from students who are doing really cool field work, really amazing lab work, crunching some serious data, and interviewing informants we're such a breadth of research representing so many disciplines already. You're all fantastic. And I don't know how you have the time to do all of that and come to this. So thank you for sharing it all with us. Our next student researcher is Josie Del Rosso, a Durham GTA student studying child and youth studies. Josie's title, A Say in Today, Voting Rights, Participation, and Youth Voice.
Turn on the news. What do you see? Headlines about the upcoming federal election, the cost of living crisis, or maybe even a few articles detailing the threats from our neighbor down south. The future of Canada is in turmoil. And yet, the so-called future of Canada, its youth, are not afforded the right to have a say in what their future will look like. My research explores lowering the federal voting age in Canada from 18 to 16. Over the past 50 years, MPs from every major political party have tabled bills to lower the voting age, all of which were unsuccessful. However, they can vote in party leadership elections, with youth as young as 14 heading to the polls this Sunday to vote for the new leader of the Liberal Party. In its Children's Rights Treaty, the United Nations states that children have the right to participate or to voice their opinions in matters affecting them. Canadian leaders often claim that Canada committed to upholding this right in 1991, and yet youth voices are still missing from the ballot box. Canadian leaders often claim that youth are not capable of, nor are they interested in, having a say. Is this true? For my literature review, I searched for peer-reviewed articles that featured youth participants aged 16 to 17. Youth are capable of having a say. Numerous studies, especially in places with a lower voting age, such as Germany, Austria, or Belgium, found that youth are equally as likely as adults to vote for the political party that best aligns with their beliefs. In terms of interest, youth in Canada want to have a say. 71% of Canadian youth agreed with lowering the voting age and are as interested in political issues as their older counterparts. Scholars against lowering the voting age often argue youth grow up. Youth will obtain the right to vote with time. So why does it matter whether they have a say in today? Well, it sends a message to adults and children alike that youth are too incompetent and too disinterested to have something of value to say. Each and every day, youth are told that their voices are not good enough. And each and every day, youth continue to fight against violent climate change, gun violence, racism and discrimination, and many other social justice issues. They push for change because they realize the time to change tomorrow is today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Josie, and how timely of a topic for sure, with both the vote we had last week and with the Liberal Party vote on the weekend. Our next speaker is Karolina Wawrzyk, a Trail College student studying psychology. Her title, From Surviving to Thriving, Growing Stronger During Times of Stress.
Thank you. It's just Picture this. It's 2020, and the world has just turned upside down as a result of the pandemic. Everyone is feeling the weight of uncertainty. Stress becomes a constant companion in our everyday lives. Now, this is a normal and even healthy response when faced with something so unknown. However, the way we cope with stress becomes critical. Meet Jill. Jill, like many folks during the pandemic, has had a significant hit to her mental health. She's feeling overwhelmed by stress, the weight of anxiety, and she's feeling depressed. Now, Joe here, on the other hand, is not exempt from stress, okay? He still faces many of the same difficulties that Jill does. However, he's seemingly been able to make meaning of the situation. In turn, he's experienced deeper relationships, stronger appreciation for life, and spiritual growth. The question now is, how can we explain these differential responses to the pandemic? Some insights may be provided from acceptance and commitment framework. Valued living is the ability to engage in behaviors that align with personal values even when faced with significant stress. For example, imagine that you really value your family. You, of course, will make the time to be with them on the weekend, even when you're having a super stressful work week. This implies, of course, that one has a level of openness and acceptance of difficult thoughts and feelings and is able to move on from them in order to make room for what truly matters. This is known as psychological flexibility. When used as an intervention, because these skills are trainable, the model has demonstrated to be effective in improving mental health. However, what remains unknown is how these different skills not only allow individuals to cope with stress, but actually grow in the face of adversity. And this specifically has not been examined within the context of a unique stressor such as COVID. My research aims to fill this gap by analyzing data collected in the fall of 2020. Undergraduate students here at Trent completed questionnaires on all of these different aspects of mental health, and I'm interested in evaluating how these different skills work together to not only allow individuals to cope with stress, but grow from it. Now, why does any of this matter? Well, challenges in life are inevitable, and stress is a natural response to these occurrences. However, it need not be the only response that we have. Specifically, within difficult moments lies the opportunity for growth. By refining the acceptance and commitment framework, we can fine-tune interventions and strategies to help individuals cope with stress and grow from it. And I'm going to leave you with this important point, because this current line of research shifts the narrative. Rather than seeing stress as something we simply must endure, we can see it as a potential stepping stone for personal growth and resilience. By doing so, we can facilitate an environment where individuals can face life stressors with strength, adaptability, and a renewed sense of purpose. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carolina. Kind of wish I had heard that before I had to work with my kids homeschooling and online schooling during COVID. But we live and learn, right? That's the message, yeah. Our next speaker is Jacob Coates, a Zosky College student studying biology and environmental and resource science. His title, Rare Fish and Where to Find Them, Identifying Habitat for the At-Risk Pugnose.
Wetlands are incredible sources of biodiversity, but sadly, in the Great Lakes, they are at risk. Factors such as invasive species, habitat loss, pollution, and climate change are degrading our wetlands, and this is resulting in declines for many species at risk. Species which we could lose forever, especially if we do not do anything to help them. In the Great Lakes region alone, there are 29 at-risk fishes, many of which rely on these coastal wetlands to survive. So to conserve them, we need to learn as much as we can. This leads us to the pugnose shiner, the little guy on the left right there. It is one of the rarest minnows in all of North America and is heavily understudied. So what we wanted to look at was what affects the occurrence and abundance of pugnose shiner across its range in Canada. So we took 20 years of data. We looked at three things: a critical habitat feature such as submerged aquatic vegetation, and we expected a positive relationship as it needs it to survive. In fact, it's a horrible swimmer. It really needs this dense vegetation or else it's going to get predated on something such as the largemouth bass. Our next species, where we expected a negative relationship. Then the last species is the black chin shiner. I swear it's actually different. They totally don't look the same. And which is a close relative of the pug-nosed shiner. It's very similar. So what we found was fairly what we predicted, with a weak but positive relationship with submerged vegetation. We kind of suspected that why this happened is because not all vegetation is created the same. This species really needs that dense vegetation to hide itself from predators. But oddly enough, we found a positive relationship with the largemouth bass too, which we weren't expecting, but we suspect. But since this species is an excellent indicator of ecosystem health, that this means there could have been a high quality habitat that could support prey for the largemouth bass. But lastly, our big piece is a moderately positive relationship with the black chin shiner. And we suspect this because it is similar in every single way. Both these species are highly sensitive to environmental degradation, and they're often seen swimming together. Like I say, it's a poor swimmer, so maybe swimming together in a group with this other species may actually help it. And also, abundances were significantly higher in sites containing black chin shiner than those are without. So why this is important is that we can hopefully use this to black chin shiner present as a way to find its habitat so we can protect it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jacob. Never heard of the pug-nosed shiner before, but maybe Jose has. No? Okay. Our next speaker is Lisa Helson, a Durham GTA student studying psychology. Her title, Don't Count on It, Exploring the Shifts in Arithmetic Fluency Between Digital and Paper Formats.
I don't know about you, but I love math. And if it came down to writing an essay or writing that math test, hand me the test. I'm hands down doing it. I'm way better at math than English. So when I heard that most people in the past 20 years have had a 20% decline in arithmetic fluency, I was shocked. And like all students, I blamed the test because I'm like, this format's wrong. You have to give it digitally because people can write or type faster than they can write. And that's not fair because I would definitely be a faster typer than writer. So I think we should focus on finding the mathletes out there because they're going to do great on my study. We need more of them to participate. So basically what it is, it's just a straight up you versus you. It's how fast can you do 60 questions in 60 seconds and how accurate you are. Overall, it was more surprising than I thought. And I have to admit, I was wrong. Digital is not faster than paper. Paper outperformed computer formats in every operation, which was, again, very disappointing. But more importantly, the accuracy didn't change. It's statistically the same. So when we look at the mean errors by operation, it was quite surprising to see that there wasn't that much of a difference. So I was shocked when I was like, well, we're not going to sacrifice accuracy. We may be able to do more, but if you're looking at compatible formats, we see a strong positive correlation between computer format will predict your paper performance, the outcomes. And I'll tell you right now that data in the wild is not the same as that in workshop. It required bootstrapping and log correlations, but still came out significant. So overall, I did also look at other factors like ethnicity, age, tutoring, math apps, and they had no effect. What this really looks like is how it's learned. What are we doing wrong? Those math errors, they weren't coincidence. There was 70% errors in subtraction from the bigger bottom Borel rule not being followed. Calculators may want to be removed from the classroom. Let's go back a bit because shockingly, 30% of those 70% bigger bottom Borel had a difference of 4. That brings in a new strategy. Remember, check your answer, count up. It was that close. So what we're going to look at is how can we understand that the validity and reliability of computer tests is equal to that of a paper test. We should be looking at what format the students prefer and respect their preferences, and trying to help people memorize math facts again, because it does increase your productivity as well as your ability to be more confident and happy with the fact that you can love math as much as I do.
Thanks so much, Lisa. I think we need math teachers that are that enthusiastic, really, right? And please don't take my calculator away. Kind of need it. Our next presenter is Elena Moyne-Azad, a Zosky College student studying forensic science. Elena's title, Shining a Light on Death Investigation, the Role of Reflectance Spectroscopy in Determining Time Since Death.
Who here loves a good mystery? Or a true crime documentary? I know I do, and it looks like many of you do too. What if I told you that we could solve the mystery of how long someone has been dead just by looking at how light is reflected? This isn't science fiction, folks. This is my research. My project explores how reflectance spectroscopy, a method that measures how much light is reflected from a surface, could help improve postmortem interval estimation, or estimating how long someone has been dead for. This is crucial, as current PMI estimation methods are intrinsically subjective and often unreliable. In the spring and summer of 2023, my team of researchers worked to collect our data in the Research in Experimental and Social Thanatology Expérimentale et Sociale, also known as the RESTES facility. RESTES is Canada's first human taphonomic facility, which has opened up opportunities to study human decomposition. Using an OceanView portable spectrometer and an OceanView PX2 pulsed xenon light source, our researchers set up an on-site spectrometry instrument to obtain reflectance spectra from the donors. From this, I quite literally got thousands and thousands of wavelengths to work with. Using a statistical technique called principal component analysis, or PCA, I analyzed all the data from a total of 16 donors, ranging from 1 day after death to over 1,000 days after death. I sorted the reflectance spectra and created PCA ordination diagrams, like this one, to observe any variance or differences between different variables, such as sample type and sample location. In addition, I'm looking at how reflectance spectra relates to observable changes we're seeing over time, and how this relates to how long an individual has been dead. Accurate PMI estimation is critical for death investigation, as it provides useful information to investigators, but more importantly, it can bring closure to families and bring justice to all who deserve it. If successful, my research could better our understanding of human decomposition and lead to a more standardized and reliable on-site tool. The field of death investigation has its flaws, but I am here to quite literally shine a light on this problem by working towards a more effective and accurate estimation method. This could not only improve the efficiency of forensic investigations, but significantly impact how we approach criminal justice, ensuring more reliable outcomes in the cases that matter the most. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elena. We're already 2/3 of the way through our speakers. Those 3 minutes, they move really quickly, don't they? But we've already learned 14 new things or more, I think. Yeah, it's been amazing. And we've got more to come. Our next speaker is Tia Halele, a Trail College student studying biomedical science. Her title, The Hidden Power of Fat, How Temperature Shapes Our Body's Energy Burn.
So imagine that you have two identical twins. One of them was raised in a warm, cozy environment, while the other one was just living in a cold environment. Now, interestingly, the one that was living in a cold environment burned more energy to stay warm. Is that simply nature or is it nurture? Now, and instead of thinking about the twins, let's just think about mice. And instead of thinking about warmth, let's just think about fat. Fat are not just fat. They do have a different superpowers. Some of them are just like a pantry. They store energy for later use. While others, just like a furnace, they burn a fuel to generate heat. These are our brown fat and the others are the white. But fat is not one or the other. Under certain condition, our storage fat will get heat producing ability in a process called beiging. And it will create beige fat tissue that sits between the white and the brown fat. And this will change how our body uses and generates energy. Our lab had already noticed that mildly cold exposed mice in adulthood, it triggered this transformation. And they were less likely to become obese. We did not know why. So we start wondering, could puberty, a time of major biological change, play a role in how fat function later on in life? This is where my rule comes in. And my research started by just like our identical twins having our mice in an identical environment. Then in puberty, from week 3 to week 10, we exposed them to warm and mildly cold environments. And now their fat tissue was collected. And now I'm looking under the microscope to see if these white fat are being transferred to the more energy burning state. And I'm expecting that if puberty is really a key window for these differences, just like in adulthood, our mildly cold exposed mice will trigger this transformation and will be less obese. Understanding this will help us uncover whether early life exposure to cold prevent obesity and metabolic diseases. Beiging is very important. So understanding when and how it happens can help us understand how our body uses energy later in life. At the end, fat is not just fat and it's not about weight. It's about how our body uses and generates energy. And sometimes the environment we grow up in can change our bodies and biology in ways we never expected. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks so much, Tia. If you're not around the labs, you don't know how much like animal research happens here, and it's fascinating. I came from the humanities. We just read a lot of books. Our next researcher is Will Riopel, a Zosky College student studying psychology. Will's title, No Need for an Encore. Does lifelong musical practice make listening easier in older adults?
Listening is an aspect of life that many of us take for granted. Our brain takes in speech and noise and is able to separate them, allowing us to focus on the voices we care about. For example, we're talking with a friend in a busy cafe. However, as we age, this process becomes more effortful, leading to strain and fatigue. And while our ears are partly to blame for this, so are our brains. As we age, our brains become less efficient, requiring more mental resources to listen to that friend. This is called listening effort. And while it sounds like a bit of a grim prognosis, what if there were activities we could do to slow this decline? For example, musical training. Musicians have spent a lifetime training their ears. Their brains take in pitch, rhythm, harmony, and much more, using what's important to their playing and ignoring what isn't. Beginning in childhood, this training can lead to better auditory memory. Therefore, musicians may also have advantages as older adults. That's why we want to know whether lifelong musical training leads to reduced listening effort in old age. To find out, we're recruiting musicians and non-musicians aged 55 to 85 into our lab for testing. There's only one problem. How can we know how much effort it takes for somebody to listen? We can't simply ask them. Instead, we use a clever task called the dual task. The first part is a memory test. Participants respond rapid fire to letters appearing on a screen by indicating whether the letter they see is the same or different as the letter presented 2 letters ago. On this simple task, musicians and non-musicians should perform equally. In part 2, we fake the noisy cafe. We play a noise layer of overlapping speech with sentences spoken on top of it. But something interesting happens when we combine these 2 tasks. We expect that since musicians are expert listeners, they'll use fewer mental resources to perform the speech task and have more resources left over to perform the memory task at the same time. And while we're still early in the research process, comparing musicians and non-musicians, we're finding confirmation that more challenging listening conditions lead to increased effort in aging adults. Importantly, this research could lend support to musical programs in schools that could help mitigate listening effort later on in life. We're striving towards a future where we can talk with that friend in the cafe for longer. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Will. You've noticed a few of the presenters tonight have kind of mentioned how they're still in progress with the research. We're still, we still have 4 or 5 weeks left of the term. So, there's still so much work that they're trying to complete while they're presenting their data. So we're really appreciative of hearing the basis, the research questions, the methods, and what they think is going to happen, and the surprises that have come along the way as well, which we've heard from lots of you as well. So thank you. Our next speaker is Ashley Smith, a lady and college student studying English and history. Ashley's title, Adam and Eve, or Adeline and Eve, Queering Women in Renaissance Literature.
Thank you. It's this one, right?
Most people look to the Renaissance and find it hard to believe that queerness existed simply because the period was so long ago and so strictly religious that it seems incompatible with queer identity. My research aims to dispel that historical fallacy. My thesis uses Eve Sedgwick's research as the foundation for my understanding of queerness. So Sedgwick defines queerness as the radical rejection of sociopolitical, gendered, and sexual hierarchies. Queer literary scholars such as Valerie Traub also believe that to study historical queerness through literature, we have to look at texts considered previously heterosexual and find the moments of queer identity that shine through in the margins. Often, to do this, we have to address the discontinuity between modern versus Renaissance diction and rhetoric. The ways in which Shakespeare, for example, discusses queer identities are not the same as how we would. They use different words and phrases that we have to train ourselves to find, and I will demonstrate how to do so using my analysis of John Milton's Eve from Paradise Lost. So Paradise Lost was a poem published in 1667, and it is about Adam and Eve's fall from the biblical paradise. Now, claiming Eve, arguably one of the straightest characters in literary history, is perhaps as queer is perhaps a tad radical, But Milton leaves us some hints in the text that denote homoeroticism. So to summarize these very long passages that I have here, Eve sees her reflection in a lake, finds it attractive, and falls in love with it. Importantly, she doesn't know it's her reflection. She simply thinks she's seeing another woman. So I have outlined in red some important words that highlight for me ways in which Eve might be queer. So pleased hints at eroticism as it means to be affected by feelings of pleasure or satisfaction. Now, Eve's viewing of what she perceives to be as another woman with pleasure or satisfaction has sexual undertones because both terms are related to arousal and orgasm during the period. As well, the phrase to pine with vain desire in the phrasing itself suggests she desires the woman in the lake. Further, pining is the sonnet trope used to describe feelings of longing or yearning in the period. As well, vain means devoid of any value, worth, or significance. So sex in the period was very phallic and reproductive centric. Penetration for procreation was what counted sexually, and other forms of non-reproductive sex were thus ignored or shamed. And with two women, as they could not procreate, there was a literal lack of worth or value in their sex. And thus we see this mindset, the remnants of this mindset in the word vain. Finally, Eve sees Adam, claims she thinks him less fair, and turns back to be with the woman in the lake. This moment is Eve rejecting heteropatriarchal hierarchy as a whole. Eve is just one example of many queer women in the period. And after hearing this, you may be wondering, why does this matter? My research is important because it broadens the historiocultural scope of female homoeroticism and connects today's queer community with a past they may not know they have. There is importance in establishing queer continuity throughout history to prove that we have always been here, we will always be here, and you cannot erase us from the canon, no matter how hard one may try. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ashley. It's great to see some humanities up here as well. So we appreciate you bringing your work. Our next presenter is Trinity Claire Williamson. Trinity Claire is an Autonomy College student studying forensic science. Her topic, When Evidence Flies, Observers in a Crime.
Flies aid criminal investigations. Their keen sense of smell can lead them to a body within minutes of death. There, they'll lay eggs and larvae. Gross. But thanks to years of research, we can predict the age of those larvae, and then we can use that age prediction to estimate the amount of time that's passed since that body passed away. It's known as the post-mortem interval, and it's used as evidence in a courtroom. So here's the issue. A vast amount of variability in our data sets mean that those estimates are actually ranges, and they can range from days to even months. An alibi might require that the time of death be known down to the hour, so you can see why that's a problem. One under-researched factor that could be contributing to this variability is known as the observer effect. And it basically insinuates that the observer, while collecting their research, is influencing the behavior of the flies, leading to less accurate results. So that led to my question. Oops, sorry about that. Can the observer actually influence the behavior of flies? And does this influence their ability to colonize a carcass? To answer this question, I collected research with Shelby Traeger under the supervision of Dr. David Beresford. We had 3 livers in 3 separate cages and a set observation point from which we watched the cages for 5 hours. And at the end of the day, we collected the livers, counted the number of immature flies, and then we repeated that for a total of 3 times. At the end of the experiment, I calculated the average number of immature flies in each cage, and then I checked to see if they differed in their amount. And they actually did. I'll stop doing that. If you look to the figure to the left, you can see that cage C had significantly more eggs than cage A. This means that not only were we influencing their behavior, but we were influencing their decision on where they were going to lay their eggs, because we were actually closest to cage A at the observation point. So to know if it was actually us causing these effects, we repeated the experiment again, except this time we didn't go outside and the livers were unobserved. You can see in the figure on your right that once again we saw a significant difference between the average number of eggs in each cage. meaning that it was us causing the effect. But only when we were outside did we see a linear relationship between the distance from us in the cage and the number of immature flies in the cages. So let's explore that relationship. The farther away from the cage you got, the more immature flies you had, meaning they were actually avoiding us, trying to lay their eggs as far from us as possible. This also means that in the future, research needs to focus on mitigating the researcher's presence in the study. This will increase the accuracy of our post-mortem interval estimations. This will improve the weight of entomological evidence in the courtroom. And overall, this will aid in criminal investigations. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Trinity Claire. I think you really highlighted how research is such part of a big team effort as well, right? The other researchers in your lab, the value of our fantastic faculty, supervisors who give so much time and advice and mentorship to you all as researchers. Such an important part of the work. So I want to acknowledge that, and I'm glad you did in your talk. Thank you. Our next presenter is Larissa Wallish. Larissa is a Zosky student studying environmental geoscience. Her title, Minerals as Climate Solutions, Capturing CO2 and Boosting Soil Health.
We all know about climate change. We've seen the ways that our major productions have impacted our environment. We've seen our forests degrade because acid rain has stripped its soils of essential nutrients. But we are a resilient species. We've implemented recycling programs, reduced single-use plastics. We've opted to drive or ride the bike or walk instead to reduce our emissions. These all offer solutions to fix one problem at a time. But what if there was another way? One that could capture CO2 while also boosting soil health. Minerals can do just that, and we call it enhanced rock weathering. Though enhanced rock weathering, or ERW, is relatively unknown, it is similar to a more widely recognized practice known as liming, where crushed rocks are spread on a field and as they break down, they supply nutrients to the soil, much like how you spread fertilizer on your lawn. Where ERW differs, though, is in the type of material used. Instead of limestone, it uses a certain type of rock that can sequester CO2 or remove it from the atmosphere and capture it, and supply nutrients to our soils. The rocks used in ERW are all different because they're made up of various types of minerals, meaning some will break down faster than others. So this is where challenges come into play, because that makes it hard to figure out how much rock we need to capture a certain amount of CO2. Lots of studies have been done in the agricultural sector trying to phase out liming and instead use enhanced rock weathering since it's dual efficient. But not much research has been done in the forest sector in seeing how we can use ERW to restore forests damaged by acid rain. So this poses the question, how fast do different minerals break down in acidic forest soil? To answer this, I took acidic soil from Halliburton Forest and placed it in columns. I then added different amounts of various types of minerals commonly used in ERW and watered each column weekly for 10 weeks, tracking changes in soil nutrients levels over time. The hope is that I'd see increases in soil nutrients based on the different minerals applied to those columns. While ERW is still new and there's lots of research to be done, it has great potential to restore our ecosystems and give us sustainable forest management practices. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Larissa. I think you're right down to the wire there. I saw Susan's hands hovering, but she didn't do it. She didn't do it. That was my favorite job when I got to be the bell person, was ringing the bell. I miss it a little. Our next presenter is Alicia Goenpinath. Alicia is a Champlain student studying forensic science and psychology. Her title, Juvenile Justice, Save Them Now or Chase Them Later.
Picture this, a 12-year-old filled with curiosity and unrestricted access to the internet types a simple yet chilling question. Who is the youngest serial killer in the world? And there he was, Amarjeet Sada, at just 10 years old, responsible for taking multiple lives. Amarjeet, however, was not an anomaly. Juveniles under 18 commit nearly 10% of the murders in the United States alone. And to no one's surprise, nearly half of them will return to crime within the next 2 years. The real question, however, is how do we reduce this? With effective interventions, of course, but how do we do that? By evaluating the effectiveness of juvenile justice interventions. There are real-life instances to demonstrate how these interventions work or fail. Take Lionel Tate, for example. Despite receiving multiple interventions to address his violent history, behavioral disorders, and mental health concerns, he still went on to commit a homicide. At just 13 years old, earning him the title of the youngest American ever sentenced to life without parole. In contrast, MJ, one of the many juveniles placed in the Youth Corresponder Teen Program in Queensland, successfully rehabilitates, despite having a similar history as Lionel. Moreover, in 2023, Queensland saw a 16% drop in juvenile crime after implementing this program. So, what sets these two cases apart? Simple. The difference lies in the effective approaches employed by the latter, including but not limited to multidisciplinary approaches, education, and training. But wait. Without the right tools, the cycle continues. We've seen this pattern before. Kids with violent tendencies, warning signs ignored, poorly structured interventions, and then suddenly, they're not kids anymore. They become infamous criminals like Ted Bundy, Paul Bernardo, Ed Kemper, all of whom exhibited violent tendencies as children. Now, remember that question I asked at 12? Who is the youngest serial killer in the world? Thinking of that again, now that I know what leads up to that answer, would I still ask that question the same way, or would I look at it differently? Because when justice fails children, they don't just grow up lost, they grow up dangerous. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alicia. Kind of make me want to change the internet filters at home. Somehow we've made it to our last presenter of the evening. We've learned so much. It's not easy being the first, not easy being the last. You've listened to everyone else. Thank you so much, Brianna Lee Bradley. Brianna Lee is a Zosky College student studying Indigenous Environmental Studies. Her title, Evicted by Conservation, Indigenous Rights in Protected Spaces.
Thank you.
What if conservation meant being forced off your land? Imagine being told that the land your ancestors cared for, the land that carries your stories, your histories, no longer belongs to you. That's exactly what happened when Canada created its national parks. Indigenous nations who cared for the lands for generations were forcibly removed. The government framed these parks as untouched wilderness, ignoring the reality that they had been actively cared for by Indigenous nations for generations. Traditional practices like hunting, fishing, ceremonies were all criminalized. This is an injustice that has been unresolved even until today. My research asks, how can recognizing and enhancing Indigenous access to traditional lands support Indigenous land protection while fostering biodiversity and reconciliation? This is not just about conservation, it's about sovereignty, and Indigenous nations must be recognized as decision makers, not just as stakeholders in the lands that they've always cared for. To answer this, I examine the history of Indigenous displacement from national parks and analyze the ecological benefits of Indigenous-led conservation through archival research, policy analysis, and case studies. I explore how traditional ecological knowledge contributes to biodiversity conservation and assess recent initiatives like Indigenous protected and conserved areas and co-management agreements. We already know that Indigenous-led conservation works. Research confirms what Indigenous nations have been saying all along, that our lands that are under our protection sustain biodiversity at levels that are equal to or greater than those in state-controlled areas. But the benefits of this go beyond conservation. Indigenous co-governed parks create stronger, healthier communities by restoring cultural connections to land, supporting language revitalization, strengthening local economies through Indigenous-led tourism and land-based education, and improving human health through clean water, air, and food security. A clear example is the Guayhanas National Park Reserve, co-governed by the Haida Nation and Parks Canada since 1993. This partnership has restored biodiversity and strengthened Haida governance, creating jobs and bringing healing to the community. Indigenous laws such as respect, responsibility, and balance, to name a few, are woven into these management strategies, but only in a limited way. Why? Because Indigenous laws aren't treated as laws. The government only accepts Indigenous knowledge when it fits into their framework, not as a legitimate, independent source of knowledge. Meanwhile, Indigenous land guardians spend more time proving that our knowledge is beneficial than actually protecting the land. Instead of focusing on conservation, we're forced into writing reports and into doing consultations, jumping through bureaucratic hoops to justify knowledges that have been tested for millennia that needs to change. Indigenous-led conservation works. It strengthens our ecosystems, economies, and communities. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Brianna Lee. Really appreciated your research. Thank you. Wow. I learned a lot tonight. I hope you did too. At 180 seconds each, these presenters just taught us 21 new ideas in 3,780 seconds, about 63 minutes. So please join me once again in applause to acknowledge all the work of these amazing students. You are all so impressive, and your work just shows us the value and the breadth of undergraduate research that is happening here at Trent. So thank you. We're so glad we get to showcase you. You're amazing. And now we get a chance for you, the audience, to cast your vote for your favorite talk. So please note that you can only mark next to one candidate that you thought best rose to that 3-minute challenge. We do have some volunteers distributing pencils if you need one. That ballot's in your program. Only the in-person audience gets the opportunity to vote for this award, and the participant with the most votes will receive the prize from the President's Office for Audience Choice. Once you have marked your ballot, our volunteers will be collecting them. And now we're going to take a little time for an intermission. I'm sure everyone's ready for a stretch, particularly you folks over here. We invite you down to Wayne 103, just down the hall, where we have refreshments. Perhaps you might chat with some of the great participants, and we will return in 20 minutes. And my watch says it's 8:40, so that means 9 o'clock. We'll be back here to present the prizes. Thank you. I hope you all had a chance to enjoy some chats with some of the presenters, maybe got a little snack, or got inspired to do some more research on something fascinating, because I know I did. Crunching all the scores, counting the ballots, it took us a while, so we appreciate your patience. We have some wonderful guests here to join us to support the presentation of the prizes for this evening. I'd first like to invite to the podium Marilyn Burns, Vice President Enrollment and Communications, to present the first two prizes, which are sponsored by the Office of the President.
Thank you so much, Erin. And I salute you, all of you. That was exceptional work and presentation. So congratulations all. You've inspired me. I've thrown away my notes. I'm making eye contact. I want to walk back and forth like you did. You've really shown us how it's done. So thank you. And this is an example of research in action at Trent University at the undergraduate level, which is unusual at any other institution. This is the kind of capability, capacity, skill building that is going on at Trent. And I wanted to thank especially a lot of the faculty and advisors and those who helped the students, the staff, etc., who came out. Some of you are helped them in their research, have been researching alongside them, another unusual Trent quality. And I want to say this is the synergy that really inspires us. And finally, a collegiate and Durham a special shout out as well, because those smaller communities of living and learning enable all of this. Now you're probably saying, get on with the prizes. So I'm here on behalf of President Kathy Bruce, by the way, and President Bruce has two prizes that she is providing tonight. And first one is the President's Office Audience Choice Award. And that is going to Ilana Moyanidi Azad, Shining the Light on Deaf Investigation. You are so wonderful. And we have another prize coming from the President's Office, and this one is the Best Use of Visuals Prize. And this is also going to Alana Moini Azad. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Marilyn. Congratulations, Alana. Trying to keep everything organized over here. Our next award presenter is Ava Stewart, co-editor-in-chief, not my cousin, of the Journal of Undergraduate Studies at Trent, to present the Social Justice Prize, which is awarded to a high-scoring presentation on a social justice issue.
Hi. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of JUST and honor these social justice issues that we like to focus on in the journal. And it is my pleasure to announce the award of the Social Justice Prize to Ashley Smith.
Thanks so much, Ava, and congratulations, Ashley. Next, I'd like to invite Dana Capel, Senior Educational Developer at the Trent Teaching Commons, to present the second runner-up prize sponsored by the Trent Teaching Commons.
Hello, thank you guys so much. That was wonderful. At the Teaching Commons, we think a lot about the connections between teaching and learning and research. And so for you to watch you guys speak so eloquently about and teach us about your research and the learning that you've done was just truly inspiring. So the second runner-up prize goes to Lucy Van Haften. Congratulations, so well deserved.
Thank you, Dana. Congratulations, Lucy. Please welcome next Babin Joy, Coordinator of Alumni Engagement and Services, to present the first runner-up prize, which is sponsored by Alumni Engagement and Services.
Wow, that was brilliant. And I'm just thrilled and proud of the fact that you brilliant minds are all going to be our future alums. So congratulations, well done, everyone. Alumni Engagement Services is proud to sponsor the first runner-up, and it goes to Will Riopal.
Thank you, Babin. Congratulations, Will. And finally, we've all been waiting to learn the winner of the overall prize sponsored by the Office of Research and Innovation. I'll invite Dr. Holger Huntemann, Vice President of Research and Innovation, to present this prize to the winner.
Wow, what a fascinating evening. I must say I tremendously enjoyed listening to all of those outstanding presentations that you gave us here tonight. And it's now sort of my turn to not only congratulate you to those intriguing, inspiring presentations, but also congratulate you for your courage to come here on stage into the spotlight in front of this large and highly critical audience and tell us and explain these complex concepts of your work, breaking it down in a way that we all were able to finally understand what's going on at Trent and our wide-ranging research happening here. I certainly learned a lot this evening, so bravo and congratulations. But enough stalling. So I think finally getting to the grand prize winner, overall winner for tonight. And the first prize goes to Ilana Moyini Azad. Congratulations. Great job. Well done.
Thank you so much, Holger. Congratulations, Elena. We're so grateful to our generous sponsors for these prizes and for their support of this event. Certainly, it makes the event a little bit more exciting to have such fantastic prizes, but you are all so amazing, and you're all winners in our hearts, right? Like this is an audience that wants to support you. You are all amazing and fantastic. For those prize winners, we'll be contacting you following the event. We don't have big checks. Sorry, we'll work on it. We really appreciate the work you all put into these engaging and informative talks. We know this presentation took so much time to prepare and to practice. At maybe a busy time in the term, you don't have anything else going on, no. And for many of you, this is your final term. So again, you'll see us at convocation, right, Babin? Yeah. So we really appreciate the work you put in. Please stick around for photos after as well. And thank you to the folks that joined us to present awards. We really appreciate that. And big gratitude to our wonderful judges, Lawrence, Jose, and Christy, for offering your time and attention as judges. Stephanie's got a little prize for you there, a little presentation, so thank you very much. We appreciate it. It's tough work. Some of the scores were a single mark difference. That's how impressive you all were. Like, it was tight. We did not get into any arm wrestling in the back room or anything like that, though. I want to really express my gratitude to the wonderful staff from Academic Skills and from Autonomy College who supported this event this evening. Thank you so much. We can't do it without you. And even more to the unmatched 3MP Dream Team, the folks who pulled this whole event together. That's Autonomy College Assistant Rachel Glofcheski-Schufelt. That's Academic Skills instructors Natalie Nelson and Kyle Sherritt, and Autonomy College Principal Dr. Stephanie Muehletaler. So let's, again, this puts a lot of work on them. Thank you. And finally, to all of you for coming out here to support these amazing students, researchers, presenters. You gave them your attention, your enthusiasm, and just your warm support. And that is more valuable than anything. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. This concludes our evening, and we wish you well. Thank you.